Well, hello everyone. This is Scott Montgomery of the Small Town Mercer, and today I'm going to produce two videos that show how projects can be financed using cryptocurrency. All right, so the first video I'm going to do today is going to involve green energy, and it's just a basic case study that I posted just for argument's sake. So I'm going to do another video in a couple of days from now that I'm going to release, and that's going to be on some of the problems that green energy um, projects have incurred and how cryptocurrency can help solve those solutions. And I'll go over those. That's a more detailed video, and I'm going to do that on Monday. Today, I'm just going to do the case studies. I'm going to do one on green energy, and then my next video that I'm going to produce later today is going to be on insurance. So let's get started. Now, there are three issues currently that hold back green energy. Okay, number one is the cost factor. A lot of wind, solar, things like that, very costly, very costly. And governments have to lay forth a lot of money. And until recently, I'm even going to argue even recently, they haven't been that profitable. Another factor involved is the financing of them. A lot of times it involves a lot of taxpayer dollars that rarely, if ever, get paid back. I don't think a lot of those will ever get paid back. And so it adds to the deficit, it adds to inflation, it adds to more money being printed, and a lot of it is just lost. Now, is that a big deal if you're a green energy proponent? No, because you're trying to find a solution. And there's a lot of trial and error in that, as there is with all technologies. But a third factor, and this is something that I always tell people that are big in on the green energy, is that, well, they're environmentally beneficial to the earth as opposed to all the other energy sources that are detrimental to the earth. And my argument is that that's not exactly true. As a matter of fact, today's presentation, I'm going to show you a fossil fuel energy project that can be beneficial to the earth if you're a green energy proponent. But solar and wind actually are detrimental to the environment, or can be. Some of the issues they have are, first of all, with solar, solar panels. What are the electron carriers in solar panels? Generally, to generate electricity, there's a lot of soft metals used, rare earth metals, silver, copper, things like that, magnesium, so forth and so on. They're increased to a high temperature, and they carry through the element and transform that energy elsewhere. Well, when you're mining those things, generally, because they're such soft metals, they're strip mined. So when you have giant, huge mines mining this stuff all over the world, all that soft metal dust is going into the air, and that's far more toxic than CO2. All right? So that's one problem. Another problem is when you're creating the solar panel, you're using a lot of toxic chemicals. And you have a lot of toxic chemical waste that can go into the water supply. Also, in making the panels themselves, it requires a lot of water to cool it off as you're producing it. And when you're putting it together, that's very energy intensive as well, much more so than a solar panel bank would produce. So finally, when the solar panels get to their end of life, and they're not that efficient to begin with, but neither is any energy source really, but solar panels are less obviously efficient than all the others. They're less reliable as well. So when they do get to their end of life, you either have to recycle them or stuff them in the ground. And when you stuff them in the ground, again, that pollutes the soil, the water. Also, it takes up a lot of land for solar panel use, and that destroys, not only does it destroy some farmland, but it destroys a lot of native vegetation and animal migratory patterns. And it actually causes a lot of wildlife to disappear as well as nutrients, grasses and shrubs and trees and what have you. So it actually has an effect of less greening. And the final thing, and then wind obviously has similar issues. It's not as reliable as solar, more expensive. Um, those component parts don't recycle as easily. And when they don't, they generally get left in the ground, and they also cause problems for land and soil and vegetation, what have you. Okay? So these are issues. A lot of people who are proponents of the green energy would say, well, not nearly as much as CO2. Well, honestly, by my research, I've noticed that when you go back in time, maybe 1,000 years or so, we had less parts per million of CO2, and we still had similar warm temperatures. Matter of fact, they were even warmer than today's temperatures. So I'm not so sure, and a lot of people are not so sure. Princeton University scientists think that CO2 is not a pollutant, but a necessity for life, and I agree with that. I don't know, if I would not classify it as somewhat of a pollutant, but it is necessary for life, and I get concerned that when people want to take all the carbon out of the atmosphere, that it's not going to be detrimental to plant life and detrimental to animal life as well. And really, in effect, I don't know that it's going to make much of a difference in the temperatures. So having said that, I want to offer that I actually am in support of some green energy projects. And one of the ones I like best is called carbon capture and storage. All right, carbon capture and storage. I'm just going to write carbon capture on there. And I wrote some notes about that. So the reason I like that is because it actually cleans up fossil fuels. And what it tends to do is it captures CO2 generated from any kind of a plant, manufacturing or energy or otherwise, and you can pump that CO2 and collect it. It collects about 90 to 95% of it currently, and it pumps it into the ground. You can either pump it into the ground. I'm going to show a video on that, like I said, a couple days from now. But it pumps it into the ground. You could also use it to go back into old oil wells and pull more oil out of them, as long as it'll hold the CO2. Because I remember I was working a few years ago, I was trying to get a project together in Pennsylvania, and the main concern for the state of Pennsylvania in some of the old oil wells that have been they've been abandoned for over 100 years, some of them, is that they weren't sure that they were going to be able to trap the CO2 because some of those wells are only 2,000 or 3,000 feet. And so that was near the water supply and things like that. So they weren't sure that those wells could trap the CO2. And they were afraid it was going to get into the ground or the water. So only certain wells can use this technology. But regardless, there are a lot of oil wells that are in current production all over the world that are deep enough that can use this. And so one of the biggest projects is going on is from the Norwegian countries, or the Scandinavian countries. And I picked on one project. It's done by Aker. And Aker is a carbon capture project. and they're teaming up with two companies. One of them is called Elkem, and the other is Ørsted. Now, Ørsted, I think, is from Denmark, and the other two are from Norway. And so they are coming up with a carbon capture and storage. They're trying to bring that back again. And the reason they're bringing it back is because you're starting to hear a lot of noise of some of the CEOs that have been pushing solar and wind and green energy. They're now starting to realize that that's way too costly. It's not going to produce enough energy. And so they're looking at alternatives to help supplement that still fit into their green energy paradigm. And so, there was last week I was reading some article that mentioned that Elon Musk is thinking about using nuclear power or hydrogen or something. I think it's nuclear power to either charge his batteries or maybe have some nuclear component in his car someday. I don't know, or certainly maybe his rocket program. I didn't really read the article. I was busy doing research for this and a couple of other videos I'm going to come up with. And I didn't really read that article, but I do remember that. Another problem that's occurring is that a lot of companies are wondering now whether or not they can fund an energy grid and be what they call net carbon or carbon neutral or net carbon neutral or something like that. Basically, whether they're not producing any more carbon or just as much carbon they're emitting from the air as they are producing, that type of thing, or maybe less carbon. And they're going to have problems with that. And produce the energy they need. So that's the problem. So that's why a lot of natural gas is really doing well now in the stock market and selling well. And, we use propane here. So, that's why that's a hot commodity right now, because they're having these problems. So these three companies are all in the energy and oil equipment exploration. And they're partnering with a couple of other companies called Saipem, which is a bigger company located in Italy, and Gas Nova, which is the Norwegian government entity that studies these type of things and funds these type of things. Okay, so these are 5 companies that are all getting together to do a study, and they're going to do this Longacre project off the coast of Norway, or Longship, I'm sorry. Longship program, which is this huge facility they want to build for carbon capture and storage for, I think it's going to encompass a great deal of the oil wells in the North Sea, in the Baltic Sea, whatever, the area outside of Norway. And that's what they're doing. So, but here's the problem with that. These companies, I'm going to erase this so I have room to write. Okay? So these companies, all told, have about $85 billion. Okay? And I'm going to equivalent in U.S. money. Now, the Danish use the Danish krona. That's about 16 cents. So it takes about almost 6.5 of those to equal $1. And I think the Norwegian krona is about 12 cents. So it takes about 8 1/3 of those to equal $1. So when you add it all up, and of course the Italian company uses euros, but that's only about $1.20. $1.20 per dollar equals €1. So you're add it all up, it's about $85 billion that these companies combined are worth. How much money can they put into the project? Well, a carbon capture storage facility, just to build one, is between 1 to 1.5 billion just to build it. And that's in our US dollars. And then to maintain it and all that is going to be a few $1 billion more. And it's going to be a few years before you see a profit from it. We only have about, I don't know how many we have running. Some of them have shut down. Some of the facilities shut down last year because of COVID. There were about, when I was working in this, putting this project together for my Catholic Youth think tank, back then there were about 20 to 25 projects in the world. I think we're down to maybe 3 or 4 now. COVID shut down quite a few of them. There might be more than that. But that's what it costs just to build it. Okay? And then to maintain it would be another billion or two. I'm not sure that these companies have that kind of money. They might have to bring on another partner. They are talking to other partners. But it could be 4 or 5 years before you see a profit in this because it takes time. Because CO2 has to be generated and captured and stored. And then you need to find a place to put it, and people pay you to inject it into their wells or into the natural gas, or even they have one in Canada that does it into the sands, the sand oils. So, as opposed to just having such a messy extraction of that, which is the main problem for the pipeline that they keep they keep blocking going across the United States, Trans-Canada. This would be a lot better. So what I proposed is, suppose the whole world were on a cryptocurrency. I'm going to erase this now so I have room to write. Suppose, here's the benefit of this. Let's suppose that we have the whole world is on Ethereum again. I'm just going to throw Ethereum out there. So we're all on ETH. Okay? Well, let's see. Aker and Elkem are on the Norwegian stock market, right? In Oslo. Ørsted is on the Copenhagen, Denmark stock market. Saipem, which is an acronym, it's the Italian Petroleum, I forget what it all stands for. They're on the Roman stock market, obviously, although they're in euros. And what else? Gassnova is a state agency in Norway. So they kind of have a limited capital, they have limited access to capital. They're all on different currencies. They all have to exchange currencies if they want to put together a project. And it's a big hassle, and it's more costly. What if we're all on ETH? What if everybody's on ETH? Well, guess what? People on the cryptocurrency exchanges love to invest and make money. And right now, it's, it's a little bit, how should I say, Wild Westish. It's not as secure. What if these markets, and that's the one thing that holds each market back, you have to invest in their currency, and it's their local market. What if all the markets were tied together on the Ethereum network? Wouldn't that be great? So you'd have stock markets in New York, right? In Europe, all the Europeans, right? All the capitals in Europe, New York, we have Tokyo, you have Hong Kong, Singapore, right? What if they're all connected? What if we're all using Ethereum or some other cryptocurrency? That would be an easy way to get capital. You could tie all the markets together. Could you not? The answer is yes, you could. And so how big is the cryptocurrency market? Well, guess what? If you took the top 10 coins, cryptocurrency coins, their market cap right now is 1.75 billion. I'm sorry, trillion. Remember, those companies combined were 85 billion, and that included a state agency. Their market cap 1.75 trillion, and that's only for the top 10 coins. How many coins are on the how many cryptocurrency coins are there? Currently, I think there's about 4,330. So 4,330. I think about 2,100 of them or 2,300 of them. I think 2,100 of them have a market cap, which means that they have at least $50,000 or $25,000 of investment in them that are online right now. The others are still building capital. They probably only have a few $100s. But you have about 1,000 coins that have a market cap of at least $250,000. And like I said, the top 10 are 1.75 trillion. And just to give you an example, if you took numbers 21 through 100, I think you're going to come up with something like another 200 billion. So there's a lot of money. And what if you could invest that in these projects? Or what if you can loan them the money? Who's the bank in the cryptocurrency world? We are, right? We are. Or you could do both. Get a percentage of the investment from the proceeds. There are a couple of them. I think one up in Canada is now profitable. They've been doing it now for, I think, 5-6 years, and they're profitable now. And they've claimed that they've taken about 250 to 300,000 equivalent of cars off the road. That's how much carbon that they've sequestered. And now you can actually sequester carbon dioxide from a machine, a stationary machine, from the air. It pulls it from the air. So those are things that are coming about. So what if you can loan them the money and get paid 3, 4, 5%, whatever they can afford to pay? Okay? Then they can, it's like, okay, this is a new project. Now you can invest in the company or in the stock or invest in the project, because we're all using similar currency, and, we'd have to follow their local, national guidelines and red tape and what have you, but that's fine. They have to take care of that. We don't. We can just put up the money. Now you can get a project going, okay? And you can even make part of it a loan so you get a return, or most of it, or whatever, however you want to do that. Because remember, governments are borrowing money from us, right? Now we're letting them keep 2/3 of it, like in my previous video. They pay us 1/3 every year, and that's our Social Security. And when we get older, it pays us off, plus all of our other investments. This is one of our investments now. Now think about that. A green energy deal today costs trillions of dollars, or some of them. The Green New Deal is 70 trillion or something ridiculous thing like that. I don't remember, but you ever going to see that money back? Maybe $1 trillion of it, maybe. Well, in this scenario, you have a project that works. I know it'll be profitable. I've seen that. I've seen a couple of them that are. You are actually using current energy sources that are reliable and have been reliable forever. and you're cleaning up CO2 from the environment. So these are the kind of projects I want to see going forward, and you're starting to see a lot of companies and countries invest in that. I read an article today, a German fella put up an article that said it looks like the combustion engine is here to stay. And he wants to use hydrogen and or other alternative fuels because he's a green energy guy too. But that's a consensus now that that you're going to have to use this going forward, and maybe even in the long term, for sustainable energy use. So I suggest that in the cryptocurrency world, this is a profitable venture. Today, in the fiat world, it's not a profitable venture, and there's no recompense when they fail. Because when they fail, it's, the politicians go up there and tell you, oh, but next year the whole planet's going to blow up. So we need to keep spending. So there's never any recompense, never any penalty for failure. And folks, this is a project that, has some provability to it, and it can make money, and it's not something that's going to cost a fortune for virtually every country on earth, causing more people to go into poverty. All right. So in my next video, I'm going to talk about insurance, show you how investing works there. Thank you for watching. This has been Scott Montgomery of the Small Town Mercer. We'll see you next time.